Imagine this. You get into bed at night, you close your eyes, you think about something completely random. And then, morning. You have no idea when you actually fell asleep. It feels like someone took a piece of time out of your life. One moment you were awake, the next moment you were waking up. But here's the strange part. Your brain didn't simply forget what happened. Your brain started shutting down the system that creates the memory before you were even fully asleep. And that is why the moment you fall asleep is almost impossible to remember. Let's see what is actually happening inside your head. Think of your brain as a giant recording studio. All day long, information is coming in. You see things, you hear things, you feel things, you think. And your brain continuously processes this information and turns parts of your experience into memories. But as the day goes on, something starts building up inside your brain, a chemical called adenosine. The longer you stay awake, the more adenosine accumulates. And the more it builds up, the stronger the pressure to sleep becomes. That's one reason you feel increasingly tired after being awake for many hours. And here's where caffeine gets interesting. Caffeine doesn't magically create a tank of energy inside you. Instead, it blocks adenosine receptors. So your brain temporarily has a harder time receiving the message, you're tired. That's why you can drink coffee and suddenly feel like you can keep going, even though your body may still be exhausted. But eventually, the brain's sleep system starts winning. Your internal biological clock begins pushing you towards sleep. Melatonin increases, your body temperature drops slightly, your brain chemistry begins shifting away from alertness. And then something important happens. The systems keeping you awake begin getting switched down. It's almost like your brain is turning off the lights in a building, one room at a time. Now comes the really strange part. Your brain doesn't simply press a giant off button. Sleep is not like awake, then sleep. It's much messier than that. Different parts of your brain can start entering sleep-like states at different times. And this creates a bizarre period between being awake and being asleep. It's called hypnagogia. This is the strange twilight zone of falling asleep. You're not completely awake anymore, but you're not completely asleep either. And during this period, your brain can start generating experiences that feel completely real. You might see strange shapes, flashes of light, faces, places. You might hear a voice, a name, a piece of music, or some completely random sound. And sometimes, you suddenly feel like you're falling. Your body reacts, and you jerk awake. That is called a hypnic jerk. You've probably experienced it. You're lying perfectly still, your muscles are relaxing, you're almost asleep, and suddenly, boom, your entire body jumps. For a moment, you're completely awake again. But here's the weirdest part. You may not remember what you were experiencing just seconds before the jerk. Why? Because your brain was already beginning to shut down its memory recording machinery. Now imagine you're filming a video on your phone. At first, everything works perfectly. The camera records every second. But then the battery starts dying. The phone begins shutting down. The final seconds of the video become unstable. And eventually, the recording stops. That's roughly what makes falling asleep so difficult to remember. Your brain is not necessarily failing to record because nothing happened. It's becoming less capable of recording the experience coherently. One of the important structures here is the thalamus. Think of the thalamus as a gatekeeper. While you're awake, sensory information is constantly being relayed toward the cortex. Sounds, touch, other sensory signals. But as sleep begins, that gate starts closing. The outside world becomes less important. The phone buzzing across the room, the sound of a car, the air conditioner, the feeling of your bed sheets. All of these signals become increasingly disconnected from conscious awareness. The brain is essentially saying, we're going offline now. And as this happens, the conditions needed to create a clear new memory are disappearing. Then there's another important player, the hippocampus. The hippocampus is heavily involved in forming new episodic memories. But during the transition into sleep, your brain is changing priorities. It's moving away from continuously recording new experiences and toward its nighttime maintenance work. Now, nighttime arrives. The director says, stop filming, start editing. The brain begins sorting through information. Some memories are strengthened. Others may be weakened or discarded. It's not simply keeping everything, it's deciding what matters. And the actual experience of falling asleep? Lying in darkness. Thoughts becoming fragmented. Images appearing. Your sense of time disappearing. Your body becoming heavier. That isn't exactly the kind of information your brain needs to preserve as a detailed memory. So the transition gets very little storage space, and this creates a fascinating paradox. You are actually experiencing the process of falling asleep, but the version of you capable of remembering that experience is disappearing at almost the same time. Think about that. To remember yourself falling asleep, you would need to remain conscious enough to observe the process. But the process itself is gradually removing the brain activity necessary for that observation. It's like trying to film yourself falling asleep while you're holding the camera, and then your hand falls asleep first. Eventually, the camera drops, the recording ends, and there's nobody left awake to press stop. This also explains why sleep doesn't necessarily have one exact moment where you can say, right there, that's the exact second I fell asleep. The transition can happen gradually. One brain region may become less active, while another is still processing information. Some sensory areas may remain active. Other areas involved in self-awareness may already be fading. Your brain's physical state can therefore change before your conscious mind fully recognizes that change. And that's why the question, when exactly did I fall asleep, may not have the simple answer we imagine. There was a transition, a gradual shutdown, a sequence of systems stepping away from consciousness. And now, we get to something even stranger. Have you ever been absolutely convinced that you were awake, only to discover that you had actually been asleep? This can happen. A person can feel as though they were lying awake for hours, but objective measurements of their brain activity can show that they were actually sleeping. In sleep science, this can be associated with sleep state misperception, sometimes discussed in relation to paradoxical insomnia. In other words, your brain can be asleep while part of your conscious experience still feels like, I'm awake. So even your own feeling of being awake isn't always a perfect measurement of what's happening inside your brain. Your brain can enter sleep mode, while the little narrator inside your head keeps talking, until eventually, even the narrator gets quiet. And remember those strange images and sounds from the moment you're falling asleep? They're especially fragile. If researchers wake someone during this early transition, they may report fragments, a face, a color, a shape, a sound, maybe the beginning of a scene, but ask them a little later, and the memory can disappear. The brain created the experience, but didn't necessarily preserve a durable record of it. It's almost like your brain produces a private little movie every night and then destroys the footage. You watch it for a few seconds, and then the projector disappears. Now think about what happens every night. You lie down. Your brain gradually reduces the signals keeping you alert. Your sensory gate begins closing. Your thoughts become less organized. Images appear. Your muscles relax. Your awareness becomes fragmented. Your ability to form new memories decreases. There is no longer a fully awake observer left to document the transition. Then you sleep. Hours pass. And eventually, you wake up. You feel like the same person. You remember yesterday. You remember who you are. You look at the clock, and everything seems continuous. But there was a huge gap in your conscious experience, and you didn't notice it, because the part of your brain that could notice the gap wasn't available to notice it. That's the real answer to the mystery. You don't simply forget falling asleep. Falling asleep is the process that makes remembering it increasingly difficult. Your brain prioritizes sleep over documenting the journey into sleep. The recording system starts shutting down while the event is still happening. And by the time the transition is complete, there is no awake version of you left to remember it. Every night, your brain performs this strange disappearing act. You enter a state where your thoughts become fragments, your senses disconnect, your body changes, your perception becomes bizarre, and your consciousness gradually fades. Then morning arrives, and you simply think, I fell asleep. But you don't remember doing it. You probably never will, because the moment you are trying to remember is the exact moment your brain is designed to stop recording. And maybe that's not a glitch. Maybe that's the whole point. Your brain isn't failing to document sleep. It's choosing sleep instead. And every night, you accept the deal. You give your brain several hours of your conscious experience, and in return, you wake up with a functioning mind. So tonight, when you close your eyes, pay attention. Listen to your thoughts. Notice when they start becoming strange. Notice the random images. Notice the feeling of your body becoming heavier. Because somewhere in those final moments, your brain will begin shutting down the camera. And you probably won't remember the moment when the camera finally goes dark.